QIA+ hate crimes. The perpetrators must be named and shamed. The creation of a specialized unit to fight crimes perpetrated against the LGBTQIA+ community is also critically needed. One does not need to be a member of the LGBTQIA+ community to stand in solidarity. One merely needs to have the courage to fight against injustice. The words of Martin Niemöller are instructive. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Thank you.
Honorable Hoffman. Honorable Hoffman. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the attempt to remove self-defense as a legitimate reason for applying for a firearm speaks to the ANC's move towards tyrannical and totalitarian governments. In seeking to capitalize on its newfound emergency powers since COVID-19 struck, the ANC are becoming bolder in their path towards dismantling democracy. There are two main reasons why the ANC want to eradicate self-defense. The first is, and much to the chagrin of criminals, is that this is the first step towards criminalizing self-defense. Criminals henceforth will freely stroll into any home or business or private property without fear of repercussion, as is the case in many other failed states. Criminals simply knock and announce their presence. This all the while the minister and other ANC members have bodyguards. Secondly, is that it is the precursor to expropriation without compensation. With citizens unarmed, private property will cease to exist. This is in line with the ANC Stalinist agenda. Venezuela, a fellow communist paradise, banned gun ownership in 2012. In that year, the murder rate was 53.7 per 100,000. In 2018, the rate was 81.4 per 100,000. Crime stats like violent crime, homicide, and sexual violence have increased steadily over the last 15 years, proving the state is unable to provide the immediate and necessary protection due to every citizen as prescribed by the Constitution. Instead of focusing on how to tackle the plethora of illicit firearms in circulation, which move freely across South Africa's borders, or clamping down on the theft of weapons from SATs and military bases, gunning for self-defense is a tactical move in the war against democracy. In summary, it was revealed earlier this month that SAT's budget for the third consecutive year has been cut this year by 11 billion rand. The hardest hit is visible policing, experiencing a 7.2% decrease from 53 million to 49 million. While visible policing, arguably the greatest deterrent to crime, is being cut.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Time is up.
We should have kept quiet. We wasted our
Honourable
time.
Sitangano.
Shut up, Sophie.
Madam Speaker, the EFF in Gauteng has observed with great concern the rise in COVID-19 infections in various parts of the province and subsequent resurgence of a third wave of the COVID virus in the province. We are concerned that the Department of Health in the province does not seem to take this matter seriously, as hospitals continue to be understaffed and the people of Gauteng continue to not have access to proper health care. The province needs to be capacitated with more hospitals, 24-hour clinic services and mobile clinics to ensure that we cap the spread of this virus, particularly in hotspot areas. This will go a long way in expediting the process of vaccine rollouts in the province, further capping the spread of this deadly virus. As the EFF, we are committed to free quality healthcare programs that will ensure that our people get the best out of the health care system. Gauteng continues to be the highest hit province, Madam Speaker. The government should be focusing on making sure that our medical doctors who are on the ground are dealing with various mutation of viruses are part of research efforts to develop our own vaccine instead of relying on the international multi-cooperation whose only interest is milking the budgets of national governments. The EFF in Gauteng calls for the healthcare system that focuses on primary healthcare, quality clinics and disease profiling through public healthcare facilities. Our approach to healthcare is and will continue to be based on the pillars of prevention, promotion, and education on healthcare. We call upon the ruling party to take a page off our books and put the health of our people first. Thank you.
Honorable Makakula.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the ANC Women's Caucus in Gauteng Provincial Legislature held a successful walk against gender-based violence in Davidton at Twatwa PCO on the 29th of May 2021. The walk comes with the urgent need to tackle the rapid growth of gender-based violence cases in the area and unresolved cases of gender-based violence. The walk received a wide range of support across the zone from political activists, community members, youth, men and women formations, as well as families of the affected GBV victims. We would also like to acknowledge and appreciate the presence and support of the SAPS and EMPD for ensuring that order and stability is maintained. We appreciate the presence of the Gauteng MEC of Community Safety, Honorable Faith Mazibuko, who also joined the march. The MEC was able to use the opportunity to engage with the families of the GBV affected victims and educating the community about the processes of such cases. The community at large appreciated our presence as the ANC Women's Caucus. Through the current caucus leadership, we are committed to provide assistance to those in need of our support and also provide support for those who have outstanding GBV cases. Watinta vafazi, watinti mbogodo. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Modise.
In accordance with Rule 81, subsection 1, I, Member Modise, tables the following member statement on the struggle of the people of Western Sahara. Madam Speaker, solidarity with the people of Western Sahara is sacrosanct. Morocco, just like Israel, are a rogue state hell-bent on profiting from the humanity of others. We remain resolute and undeterred in our fraternal solidarity affiliation to the justice and self-determination for the people of Western Sahara. The Western Sahara people have spent the past 46 years fighting against their oppression by Morocco, a country that, despite the United Nations intervention, has bluntly refused to end its illegal presence on the Western Sahara soil. Western Sahara remains the only country in Africa that has not been correctly decolonized after Spain withdrew its colonial presence. People of Western Sahara have not been able to exercise their right to post-colonial independence since 1975, when it was annexed by Morocco following the Madrid Accords, in which Spain divided control of its former colony between Morocco and Mauritania. The Western Sahara people have been tortured and killed for simply demanding what is rightfully theirs, their land. As South Africans, blacks in particular, we know the pain of the people of Western Sahara too well, having coming from a history of colonialism and apartheid ourselves. Our struggle may be slightly different in shape or form, but the consequences are the same. Through the Growing Gauteng Together 2030, the ANC in Gauteng committed to build a better Africa. We cannot build a better Africa when the people of Western Sahara have not gained their freedom. We therefore call on all African countries to unite and end oppression of Western Sahara people. As the ANC, we are not apologetic for our support to the people of Western Sahara, and we shall not rest until the people of Western Sahara have gained their independence. I thank you.
That concludes member statement. In terms of Rule 121, there's no motion without notice that has been submitted. We are now going to deal with item number 1, which is questions for oral reply to the executive in terms of Rule 134, starting with Honorable Dr. Dikhamela to MEC for Health.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Sorry. The Bronkhorstspruit Hospital received a boost to build extra facilities so that the community in Region 7 in Tshwane receives specific services in the local area. The hospital has not been gazetted to be a district hospital yet. We know that the hospital budget is often underspent at that hospital, while patient administration system remains manual, and the hospital board is supported by junior officials. Will the MEC answer the following questions? Number 1, how far is the process that is undertaken to fast-track the gazetting of the Bronkhorstspruit Hospital? 2, what are the reasons for the budget underspending in that facility? 3, what is the departmental plan to assist the facility to cap underspending? 4, what plans are there to strengthen the support to the board of Bronkhorstspruit Hospital in the place of the junior officials currently being utilized? Lastly, what plans are in place to improve on the filing system at the Bronkhorstspruit Hospital that still uses a manual system? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, honorable members, and thank you very much, Honorable Dikhamela, for the question. Response to question 1. The process of Bronkhorstspruit Hospital to be classified and gazetted as a district hospital is in the pipeline. The submission requesting the classification and the gazetting to the Department of Health has unfolded, awaiting all relevant signatories for approval. Response to question 2. Due to the Bronkhorstspruit Hospital not having its own approved organizational structure establishment, as it is not yet gazetted, the supply chain management, finance and human resource support services are rendered at the Tshwane district. It is at times a challenge for supply chain that the district to effectively and promptly procure all requested goods and services for the hospital, as they are primarily primary healthcare services based with limited staffing. COVID-19 pandemic contributed to the hospital underspending, especially during the stringent lockdown regulations. Absence of adequate warehouse and infrastructural limitations hinders the hospital to procure large quantities at once, having to place minimum orders in phases. Response to question 3, the recruitment process are already in motion for both level 5 and 7 supply chain and finance appointments for Bronkhorstspruit Hospital to strengthen the procurement processes with the support from the district. The posts were re-advertised on the 5th of March 2021 with the initial online advertisement during the COVID-19 level 3 lockdown, closing on the 28th of July 2020, but no suitable candidates were obtained, and the shortlisting process has commenced as of the 14th of May 2021. Response to question 4, Bronkhorstspruit Hospital Board subcommittee members are inclusive of the district support senior officials. Meanwhile, the recruitment process of hospital own is facilitated. Response to question 5, engagement took place to prioritize Bronkhorstspruit Hospital filing. Provincial Records Department and Metro File Company visited the hospital on the 9th of May 2021 and conducted a filing assessment, and the Office of the MEC is overseeing the implementation of the project. The hospital administrative team forms part of the patient registration process, case management, patient accounting, revenue management, and billing of external funders workshop for the past 2 weeks and is still ongoing. IT officials at the Tshwane district form part in this workshop to facilitate the final implementation of such electronic system in the hospital. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Dikhamela, do you have a supplementary question or a short remark?
No, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The next question again is Honorable Dr. Dikhamela to MEC for Health.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Noting that our government, through the National Department of Health, has taken a conscious decision to advance the universal health coverage, where every citizen would receive quality health care regardless of economic status in this country. That the national health insurance should be progressively implemented to be able for general health coverage for at least 90% of South Africans by 2030. Can the MEC explain the following? What are the necessary measures put in place to ensure that Gauteng province is counted among the first provinces to have NHI facilities certified by Office of Compliance or Office of the Health Standards Compliance? Number, if the NHI measures are put in place, how are those measures going to be sustained and expanded going forward? Number 3, what is the status of Gauteng province compared to the rest of other provinces regarding NHI progress and state of readiness? And number 4, what measures are put in place to ensure that lessons learned during the piloting phase help in resolving potential problems in congested areas? For example, the Alexandra Township that is densely populated with different disease profiles and clinical assistance access compared to places like Hammanskraal, which is different in most respects. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Dikhamela, for the question. Response to question 1. Gauteng already is amongst the first provinces with the highest number of primary healthcare facilities being awarded certificate of compliance. The list is attached. The Quality Assurance Unit continues with support visit and make extensive collaboration for all institutions to work on their quality improvement plans, which usually assist an improvement of the prescribed self-assessment that should take place annually. Response to question 2, the Gauteng Department of Health is also among the first provinces that have submitted prerequisite of proposed National Health Quality Improvement Plan, which focuses on the establishment of quality learning centers, which will be monitored from the provincial office with an escalation prerequisite to the National Department and the Presidential Office. Therefore, complying with this initiative will assist in sustaining and expanding the going forward. Response to question 3, as Gauteng Department of Health is currently engaging with the Premier's Office and will soon engage with the DPSA on the organizational structure pertaining to the National Health Insurance Framework. Priority areas identified and currently being attended to include addressing primary healthcare infrastructure and service deficits such as mapping catchment and clinic usage, ideal catchment size linked to clinic threshold, expanding and stabilizing the referral network, assess the effectiveness of the current referral system, and put in place remedial actions, building the capability and capacity to manage the purchaser function, an example, rolling cost centers and functional business units, capacity and optional skill mix. And then the delegations are also attached for your easy reference, Honorable Member. Response to question 4, a prototype was developed for primary healthcare facilities of different sizes, and one hopes that the capital projects for PHC facilities will follow suit. The CMDD program is implemented across the province to help decongest health facilities by delivering chronic medicines at patients' homes of closer to where they work or stay. Ward-based outreach teams have been established to help with health profiles of communities, as well as identify possible individual health problems, thereby allowing early intervention. Those requiring government services other than health are appropriately referred to the relevant government departments. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Dikhamela, do you have a short question or short remark?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. 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 Thank you
Yes, Honorable Speaker, thank you, Honorable MEC, for the responses. For question 1, I heard that there is a list attached, and also question 3, there are delegations attached. How do we access those attachments so that we can familiarize ourselves with that information? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable MEC?
Thank you very much.
Before, sorry. Honorable Nsakhe?
Thank you, Speaker. 134 subsection 7. I just want to comment on the response to question 3 in terms of intensifying primary health care and ensuring that clinics are running properly and more clinics are actually built. I wonder if the MEC is even aware of the fact that Ekurhuleni has put a moratorium on building new clinics, and yet we seem to be rolling out this NHI. And I'm wondering how you roll out something when your local sphere is not compliant in terms of ensuring that while you have in-migration and you have challenges of a lot of people going to clinics, you've then put on a moratorium on building of those clinics and the impact of it on this NHI rollout. Maybe ANC should revisit their strategy of giving universal access in terms of healthcare. Thank you.
Honorable MEC?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Dikhamela, the list will be submitted with the response to the legislature, and the delegations as well, they will be attached. Thank you. And I'm noting the comment of Honorable Secretary.
Thank you. The next question, Honorable Mabunda to MEC for Health.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Noting that the department has made various interventions regarding the overall GPG goals and national long-term GOD outcomes, as outlined in the national policy frameworks for the empowerment of targeted groups, can the MEC therefore explain the following? What is the overall department's performance for the 2019-2020 financial year regarding the following? 1, the recruitment of people with disabilities. 2, unemployed youth empowerment program, including youth with disability. 3, preferential procurement for targeted groups. 4, campaigns and programs supporting women and child health. And 5, campaigns supporting access to health programs for young women. Thanks, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable MEC?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Mabunda, for the question. With regard to the recruitment of people with disability, the target that we have achieved is 0.51%. The amount spent is 36,773,925. With regard to the unemployed youth empowerment program, including with youth with disability, we have achieved 7.28%. We spent 565,171,165. Preferential procurement for targeted groups, we achieved 34.67%, with the amount just above 2.5 billion. And then campaigns supporting access to health programs for young women, we achieved 19.80%, with an amount spent of just over 1.4 billion. And I must say, Honorable Mabunda, we were discussing yesterday the improvement plan in making sure that we achieve our targets, because the impact of COVID and the lockdowns made us not to achieve. The program conducted as STI Condom Week activity at all districts from the 3rd to the 14th of February 2020. Adolescent and young women were educated on prevention, identification and management of sexual transmitted diseases. The campaign also focused on negotiating safe sex with male partners and demonstrated the correct use of condoms. A total number of 20,119 were HIV tested and screened for TB and STI during the STI Condom Week campaign. A total of 296 tested HIV positive, 69 pregnancy tests were conducted, 270 cervical cancer screening done, and five clients cancelled for termination of pregnancy. A total number of 834,052 female condoms were distributed, and 29,092,771 male condoms were distributed. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And we've also attached a spreadsheet on the expenditure from 2019-20 until the fourth quarter of 2021-22 for easy reference, Honorable Member. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mabunda, do you have a supplementary question or a short remark?
No, thanks, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Bloom to MEC for Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize because I normally use the video on my cell phone, but the connection doesn't seem to come in. They still have to put a camera on my laptop, so I apologize for that. My question to the MEC for Health is regarding compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Will the MEC please indicate, 1, which hospitals and clinics were fully compliant with the OHSA as at 31 March 2021? 2, what are the reasons for non-compliance with the OHSA at other hospitals and clinics? 3, which hospitals and clinics did not have health and safety committees established as at 31 March 2021? 4, what are the reasons for any health facility not having an established health and safety committee? And 5, which hospitals and clinics did not have verified functioning water hydrants and fire extinguishers as at 31 March 2021? Thank you.
Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Bloom, for the question. Response to question 1, a full assessment of compliance with regard to occupational health and safety for the financial year 2020-2021. The latest assessment report on OHS compliance were in relation to COVID-19 regulations. Furthermore, there was an assessment done in 2019-20 on all the regulations of Occupational Health and Safety Act number 85 of 1993. The assessments that were done are regulations that were fully compliant, partially compliant, and non-compliant. The following is an account of the compliance status based on the 2019-20 assessment. Majority of the central hospitals were fully compliant with the following regulations in majority of our facilities: general administration, construction, pressure equipment, lifts and escalators. Majority of central hospitals were partially compliant with the general safety, major hazardous and electrical installation, and the facility regulations, and non-compliance was on noise-induced hearing loss. Majority of tertiary hospitals were fully compliant with general administration, major installation, construction regulations, partially compliant with general safety, pressure equipment and facility regulations. Non-compliance was with the following: the general machinery, electrical installation, lift and escalator and passenger conveying. Majority regional hospitals were fully compliant with the general machinery, lift and escalator conveying. Electrical machinery regulations were partially compliant with general safety, electrical installation, pressure equipment and facility regulations, and non-compliant with major hazardous installation, general administration, construction, noise-induced hearing loss. Majority of the district hospitals were fully compliant in the majority with general machinery, electrical machinery, partially compliant with general safety, electrical installation, and non-compliance with major hazardous institution. Insofar as COVID-19 regulation compliance is concerned, all of our hospitals were compliant as they conducted risk assessment, all as required by the Department of Employment and Labor. Insofar as appointment of compliance officers is concerned, all hospitals and support facilities, central office, regional office, EMS, MSD, Gauteng Nursing College, have appointed compliance officers as per DPSA Circular 18 of 2020. According to 2018-2019 APP performance report, 50% of hospitals were compliant with appointment of OHS committees and in line with the financial year 2020-21 all hospitals were 100% compliant. The department has appointed 16.2 appointees, the managers who are responsible for OHS according to section 16.2 of OHS Act number 85 of 1993 in all hospitals and support facilities. These are CEOs or chief directors and senior managers in support facilities. The appointments were done by the head of the department as per Occupational Health and Safety Act number 85 of 1993, section 16.1. Response to question 2, the interdependencies with the DID and contractors to ensure compliance, limited HR and finances for appointment of OHS practitioners and to procure required goods and services. The HR deficit indicated that for occupational medical practitioners, occupational health nurse practitioners, exposure scientists, safety officers or engineers, another contributory factor is lack of centers of OHS at facility level, and we are now amending the Department of Health organizational structure to enable allocation of resources accordingly. Response to question 3, as far as the financial year 2021, all hospitals complied with the requirement of appointing an OHS and Safety Committee as provided by the Occupational Health and Safety Act number 85 of 1993. The clinics are part of the district health and safety committees, and the clinics OHS representatives form part of these committees and are counted as such. These will be assessed and reported as from 2020-2022 financial year. The previous financial year of 2020-21, the focus was mainly at hospital level. Response to question 4, none as far as this is concerned. As far as provincial clinics are concerned on the functioning of health and safety, they form part of district health and safety committee with representatives from the sub-district. These will be assessed and reported on as from 2020-21, 2022 financial year. The previous financial year of 2020-2021, the focus was mainly at a hospital level. Response to question 5, it's none, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Any supplementary question or short remark, Honorable Bloom?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to hear that they all have functioning committees and water hydrants and extinguishers. I mean, this is absolutely critical. I'm just concerned that that there seem to be quite a number of hospitals and clinics that are only partially compliant and non-compliant. It's something I think that the Honourable MEC could please make her reply, make available a written version of a reply, because there were quite a number of areas where hospitals were only partially and non-compliant. Could she just reflect on what's being done to make sure that all hospitals and clinics are fully compliant with the health and safety legislation? Thank you.
Honourable MEC.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. It will be made available, as I have already indicated that there's already a remedial action that is on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question by Honourable Bloom to MEC for Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Regarding the death toll from COVID-19 in Gauteng, will the MEC please indicate, 1, how are deaths from COVID-19 officially recorded? 2, what is the current number of such officially recorded deaths? 3, why is there a large discrepancy with the excess deaths estimate provided by the Medical Research Council, which was 25,355 for the period 3 May 2020 to 17 April this year? 4, what is the department's own estimate of the likely number of deaths from COVID-19 that were not picked up officially? And 5, what steps are being taken to ensure that there's a more accurate assessment of the real number of COVID-19 deaths in Gauteng? Thank you.
Honourable MEC.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Bloom, for the question. Response to question 1, COVID data, including deaths, is officially captured on the death curve countrywide by reporting hospitals. The province has already been using a district reporting process which has since been phased out to align to the DEFCON reporting. Response to question 2, 10,770 is reported from the aforementioned district death list. However, as part of COVID data management strategy, a data harmonization and clean-up process whose aim was to reconcile the district death records and the death curve is ongoing and is about to be completed. Once the process is concluded, reconciled figures will be reported. Response to question 3, the estimated excess death reported by the MRC is different from predicted deaths based on the trends seen from 2014 to 2019 and observed or reported deaths. Majority of these excess deaths are likely due to COVID-19 directly or indirectly, where non-COVID-19 deaths are most likely due to the impact of the pandemic. Currently reported COVID deaths in Gauteng account for approximately 42% of excess deaths. The remainder of the excess deaths could most likely be due to COVID deaths, undiagnosed, not reported, or delaying reporting, or to the impact of the pandemic on the individuals and the health system. The MRC is currently analyzing death notification forms, and this process will enable us to give a clearer indication of the attributable causes of excess death in the province. A response to question 4, based on the preliminary reconciliation and data harmonization efforts, the total number of estimated deaths is 13,756, which is the figure on DETCOF. It was determined after extensive data cleaning and validation efforts. The last leg of this process entailed confirmation of some few remaining records through the Home Affairs Department and interviews with hospital data collectors and management. Response to question 5, since the third quarter of the previous financial year, data harmonization and cleanup process commenced, which enabled tracking and completion of missing fields in the database, training of all the data capturers on DETCOF, their system, which is more standardized, retraining, including other category of employees on reporting of out of facility deaths. In the fourth quarter, we commenced with a cleanup process for private and public sector records and harmonization of the 2 deaths data reconciliations. Support has been requested from Department of Home Affairs to support confirmation of some of the death records. National Department of Health has also provided support by deploying dedicated data capturers on COVID-19 data to hospitals with improved data quality. This was done due to insufficient capacity at facility level. The duration of contracts is from February to June 2021. NICD has also been continuously engaged on all the data cleanup efforts and additional requests to ensure that DETCOF includes all the important fields to support the response. The preliminary report is available that detail the data harmonization process and can be shared pending the time that the remaining records are confirmed by both hospitals and Home Affairs. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Bloom.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really want to thank the Honourable Health MEC for her reply. This is obviously of great distress that the excess deaths figure from the Medical Research Council is probably close to the real number of COVID-19 deaths. We can't be totally certain that all the excess deaths are due to COVID-19, but as the Honourable MEC said, there's direct effects and indirect effects. The effect of the lockdown, of people not being able to get treatment from the hospital for other illnesses. I think that it's important that we do know the full extent of the COVID mortality, and that the cleanup efforts, data cleanup and harmonization efforts continue to be done so we can assess this properly. But I really wish to thank the Honourable MEC. I think it's important for public information that we have this information. Thank you.
Honourable MEC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bloom. Appreciated, and thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next question, Honorable Kanyile to MEC Community Safety.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. With the World Health Organization preparing for the second decade of action for road safety, the period 2021 to 2030, and the intended target being to prevent at least 50% of road traffic deaths and injuries by 2030, will the MEC indicate the following? One, is the MEC aware of the preparations by the World Health Organization to launch the second decade of action for road safety in the period 2021 to 2030? What key programs by the Department of Community Safety does the MEC think that they contributed positively towards reducing road fatalities and injuries in Gauteng in the first decade of road safety? What is the MEC's view on the key challenges which led to the targets of the first decade of road safety not being achieved? Lastly, how does the Gauteng Department of Community Safety intend to build on these challenges to plan for successes of the intended second decade of safety to meet the proposed 50% reduction in road fatalities and injuries? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and we appreciate the question from Honorable Member Kanyile. In responding to question number one, if we are aware of the preparations by the World Health Organization to launch the second decade, the answer is yes. Honorable Member, you'll recall that 2010 to 2020 was the first decade of action, and that is why, because that decade has ended, the second decade is being prepared, and accordingly so as the province, especially South African government, we are also embarking on ensuring that that actually does take place. In answering question number two, of what key programs the department they contributed positively, we have a directorate under the Department of Community Safety, which is the Directorate of Traffic and Law Enforcement, including road safety. What happened is that various road safety awareness programs were actually held and demonstrated throughout. We even had outreach programs at shopping malls, at schools, and also through the public transport hubs, and also targeting pedestrians, and through the GILI forums, also focusing on the reduction of road fatalities, and continuous engagements with all our municipalities in ensuring that when they report, they also indicate the challenges, including the improvements that they've made in ensuring that those targets are actually met. And consistently, as a province, we continuously report. You will recall that even Minister does host briefings after Easter, after a festive season, and at various points where we actually update South Africans and the community at large that indeed we are working very hard. On question number three, what is the MEC's views on key challenges which led to the targets of the first decade not being achieved? The vehicle population, Honorable Member, is growing tremendously here in Gauteng, whilst the number of traffic officers always remains the same. As much as all of us were trying by all means to recruit, whether at metro level, at province, and at municipal level, we're trying as much as possible to be recruiting officers, but the vehicle population is overtaking us. The growth in informal settlements, Honorable Member, that are also established next to freeways is another contributing factor, because a high number of pedestrians are actually killed on those roads. Our communities who live next to freeways, they think if freeway and you find them walking or trying to cross. Can you imagine trying to cross EN1 or EN2? It has 4 lanes this side and 4 lanes this side. In total, you want to cross 8 lanes. obviously you are inviting trouble, and that bright Jesus is waiting for you. Corruption at vehicle testing stations also is contributing, because some are given their licenses when they totally have not perfected driving. K53 was introduced, marabaning by bypass. They only stick to that once they are still learning. Nasabe pasile, they no longer practice what they were taught. In fact, I can check amongst all of you here who still practices what they were taught. K53. 0 of you. Ngena nje emotweni ni start and hand. Noma ingena petrol, niyahamba. Nithi nizobona phambili. Sesinibona seniphethe igubhu nofuna ipetrol endleleni. None of you. You were taught to check mirrors, check water, check what. Anisakwenza konke lokho. Ngena ndrive. Musa wenkosi. And some of the people, they get these licenses when they have not necessarily perfected. Others, Madam Speaker, you find a person driving on the fast lane at 60 kilometers. Ufake nelena driver here at the back. The other time I was listening to Kaya 959 when listeners were complaining about behavior of drivers. Athi uzombona untombo ngepikanto uhlezi ku fast lane. Hamba ngo 40. Does not even care. And remember, once you are on the fast lane, the maximum speed is 120. When ntombo ngepikanto yakho 40 kilometers. Awunandaba tu ubhizi futhi lokulungisa neinwele zakho ubheke speeding. That's against the law. Into sisifundile na ku K53 that we are not supposed to be doing them, Honorable Speaker. Others also talking on their cell phone. Others also texting whilst they are driving, Madam Speaker. And also the increase in the number of crime-related incidences involving stone throwing from bridges and also spikes on the roads, where a person, after hitting that spike, obviously, the car gets damaged, either in trying to control the car, they actually land themselves either on the barrier or hitting those barriers alongside the roads. Poor maintenance of the roads also is creating problems. But we appreciate MEC Mamabulu. He has established a team of fighting these potholes. So hopingly, as we drive now, there'll be lesser incidences, but also encouraging our communities not to always erect tents in the road, because they boboza that tar road, and as it rains, it starts creating a pothole. So we wish to urge our communities, nanishama matende, msansa lokuni boboza iskontiri setu, ngoba leskontiri siyasilungisa, siyabhoboka njalo. Driver fitness, Madam Speaker, also abuse of alcohol. Hey, gubi, abantu baphuza bese bangena emotweni. And time and again, many people are actually arrested for driving under the influence, which is a serious problem now, Madam Speaker, when we see quite a lot of our people. Excessive speeding also is contributing to some of those challenges. Inconsiderate driving and reckless and negligent driving also. Vehicle fitness, my apology, and roadworthy vehicles on our public road. Others, they are driving even without license disc. Others are also driving without having their driver's licenses. And another challenge, Madam Speaker, is that other naughty children, they take the car keys of their parents, go partying in their parents' cars. They come back, they are drunk, and as a result, they get themselves into accident. So there are some of the challenges that made us not achieving some of these. Hopingly, working together with communities, we can be able to work together. On question number 4, how does the Gauteng Department of Safety intend to build on these challenges to plan for the successes intended for the second decade and to meet the proposed 50% reduction? Madam Speaker, we are working very hard in increasing the number of traffic officers who will join the service, committed. Hayi laba bazoqoqa imali enandos, because bribery is now a problem amongst all traffic officers, amongst board, Madam Speaker. So we need committed men and women who are joining this service, committed that they're actually coming to help us to fight these carnages on our road. Integrated approach to law enforcement and involvement in local and municipal integrated development plans, maximizing integrated compliance inspections, especially at the DLTCs and at the VTS, increase visibility at identified locations where there's always these accidents, and road inspections that will be conducted and information will be submitted to the various departments, conducting of targeted operations, intensified operations that will always be conducted, strengthening and building strong community structures such as the road safety councils, so as to be able to get many of our people to participate in road awareness and making them to be informed about what are the do's and don'ts in order for us to be able to achieve these targets. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. Sorry, Madam Speaker. Is it parliamentary to humiliate and embarrass us, we Picanto drivers, Madam Speaker? Is it parliamentary?
Okay, let me allow Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, MEC, for the response, and I think that you'll agree with me that one of the things that is important for us, it's important that we also focus on our youth and the young ones. But also, I think I agree with you that the cooperation with other departments, particularly the liquor board, in the way they regulate the issuing of liquor and the problems we find in the road, as I agreed with you, the work that you can do with the colleagues in the in the executive, like the human settlements and transport. But I think the important thing also is the cooperation with the municipalities and all other law enforcement agencies that have to do with traffic, like we have said, the national traffic, and of course, this target must be met by all. Let me conclude by saying that I think that I just want to indicate that I'm one of those that comply with what I was told at the road traffic. Thank you very much.
I hope I will do isazelo. MEC, I don't think you want to comment on this. You're fine. Okay. Next question again, Honorable Kanyile to MEC for Community Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Get the question now. Oh, there's it. Noting that policing in the world seems to be evolving, and central to this is the use of technology, can the MEC indicate, one, if the Gauteng Department of Community Safety has considered incorporating in its plans the use of technology as a strategy to improve policing in the province? Two, if there has been engagement with and lobbying of other law enforcement agencies like the SAPS, Metro Police, etc., to consider the use of technology as a strategy to ensure that the citizens of Gauteng are and they feel safe. And lastly, the rationale behind the position that Gauteng Department of Community Safety has taken on the use of technology towards safety in Gauteng. Obviously, question number 3 depends on the response on question number 1. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the question from Honorable Member Kanyile. On the first question, if the department has considered incorporating its plans into the use of technology as a strategy, yes. In responding, Madam Speaker, the department has throughout the years considered and advocated for the use of technology as a strategy to also improve the quality of policing here in our province, as we know that it is a highly densely populated province, and at some stage you do need this technology to be able to do law enforcement. And studies, the department has undertaken many studies comparative studies, has gone even on various study tours in learning from other countries how these can actually be used. And also the department at its quarterly review sessions always is engaging with law enforcement agencies, proposing the use of drones and quiet bikes to augment policing, but also to gain access to informal settlements due to terrain in such areas. However, the issue of pilots and licenses for drones has always been raised as an impediment by law enforcement agencies. You'll recall, Madam Speaker, that for you to fly a drone, you need to have a pilot certificate. And by pilot certificate, it means you must get an aeroplane in your funda by a pilot. You can't be a pilot, a pedestrian. So that continuously becomes a challenge. So hopefully, many young people will also take up that profession, because we do really indeed need quite a lot of people to be able to come in and be able to use these pilots and also these drones, and also to assist us in the fight against crime. On question number 2, if there's been any engagement with and lobbying of other law enforcement agencies to consider the use of the technology as a strategy, indeed, yes, Madam Speaker. As I indicated, as the department, working together with all law enforcement agencies, as people are also doing oversight over them, linked to our DGT 2030, that also talks about e-policing. It's one of the things that has been there in ensuring that we foster the use of technology. Traffic officers wearing body cameras, for them also, not necessarily to thwart them from taking bribes, but also as part and parcel of ensuring that it's easy, even when going to court, to produce evidence of exactly what it is that the driver or those that you were engaging with are able to do that. And also to foster greater cooperation and collaboration amongst law enforcement agencies. The department also is busy establishing a provincial innovative hub. As part of the findings in the study that was done, the provincial government has already allocated 20 million in the previous financial year, which we have requested, and soon that building will be up and running. As soon as DID also is not in giving us a building where all these technologies will be met. Of course, working with the private sector in ensuring that we do make that hub functional. The issue of budget and affordability of the technology also was highlighted by law enforcement agencies. That's why I indicated, Madam Speaker, that the provincial government did allocate a bit of money. And our Growing Gauteng Together 5-year plan also has e-policing as one of its objectives, which incorporates the smarter, safer concept for the 3 metropolitan areas, the integration and utilization of CCTV cameras, the establishment of the high-tech provincial integrated command center, and the implementation and maintenance of the E2 project, optimal utilization of the SAPS internal IT and ITC systems also. And the rationale behind the position that Gauteng Department of Community Safety has taken on the use of technology. Indeed, Madam Speaker, the department is of the view that the technology can benefit law enforcement agencies in the fight against crime, and research that has been undertaken has proved that to be possible. And if we compare to other countries and also to various ways of fighting crime, that has proven to be very effective. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you, MEC, for that response. And I think we all agree that policing is a coordinated effort, like you've also confirmed, MEC. And I think the view that you'll be able to coordinate all other law enforcement agencies will come. Because I think the use of technology is an enabler for effective and efficient policing, in not only policing, but all other aspects of life. And I think that the prioritization of such can be able to assist us in dealing with crime and reducing it in that regard. But also that this engagement of relevant departments that regulate the use of technology will be also important to ensure that the simplicity, all the regulations that are there must be able to assist the use of drones, and I think that will be an engagement in that regard as well. Thank you very much, MEC, and thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you. Any comments, Honorable MEC?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And we appreciate the comments, Honourable Member Kanyile. And I forgot to mention, even this technology, Yama e-tolls will be coming into force. Nasa we Yama e-tolls, physically, that technology is going to be utilized in order to track the cars on the road.
That concludes the question time to the executive, but let me take this opportunity to thank all MECs for having responded to all the questions, because when there are challenges, it is us as presiding officers that actually fight with you, but when we have responded, and adequately so, we must also be thankful. Thank you very much, MECs. Can I request the Secretary to read the first order?
Thank you, Speaker. The only order for the day is motion on the establishment of multi-sectoral task team for protection of critical infrastructure in the province in terms of Rule 121, Sub-Rule 2D.
Honorable Malvani Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let me read the motion. I, Sizakele Nkosi Malobane from the ANC, tables the following motion in accordance with Rule 121 in brackets 2 in brackets D on the establishment of multi-sectoral task team for protection of the critical infrastructure in the province. Critical Infrastructure Protection Act, Act number 8 of 2019, was gazetted on the 28th November 2019. It provides for the identification and declaration of infrastructure as critical infrastructure. Furthermore, the Act provides for measures to be put in place for the protection, safeguarding, and resilience and critical infrastructure. Noting that for key economic infrastructure is a prerequisite for enabling the conducive environment for investment, the provision of efficient, reliable, safe, and affordable public transport is an important economic enabler for millions of the workers within the province. The deliberate sabotage of the critical infrastructure in Gauteng since the start of COVID-19 lockdown is tantamount to terrorist act coordinated by criminal syndicates. I also believe that critical infrastructure needs to be protected as essential to foster economic growth and alleviate poverty and unemployment. The critical infrastructure in the form of road infrastructure, railway transport system, and electricity network is required to grow the economy and attract foreign direct investment for provincial economic sustainability. Therefore, I call upon the House to debate and resolve to assessing the impact and implication of sabotage and vandalism of critical infrastructure in the province, to also establish a multi-sectoral response team that should be mandated to deal with an organized criminal syndicate which seeks to undermine the economic security of the province. The Provincial Protection Infrastructure Task Team should be established under the directive and supervision of the Gauteng Provincial Department of Community Safety and Infrastructure Development, and also Community Safety Department to report back on the work of the PITT to the House every 3 months, but also to investigate the possibility of gazetting the resolution in making sure that the PITT is not just a structure but is a structure that is able to act and, where possible, arrest the perpetrators. Also, that the Gauteng police to give, they should be given powers to arrest as well as surveillance. Madam Speaker, I submit.
I'm sure also when we're at home, we also need to dress appropriately. Just as a reminder to all the honorable members, if you know that you are not dressed properly, you better not show yourself. Thank you. Can we allow Honorable Fuchs?
Thank you very much, Speaker. When it comes to the implementation of infrastructure and its protection from theft and vandalism, this government has not covered itself in glory. The literature is replete with the reasons for this, and while we have had numerous politicians from the ruling party who have waxed lyrical about the failures, no one has as yet been able to take steps to remediate the situation. The Minister of Transport recently said, and I quote, "When we shut down the trains due to COVID, we didn't take contingency measures to secure the lines and preserve the little that is left. Negligence kicked in and the entire network has broken down. PRASA has challenges with security, which has left the infrastructure vandalized. This is due to contracts that were cancelled," unquote. There you have it, Madam Speaker. It's an admission that this government has failed in its obligations towards its citizens. The President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the theft and vandalism of infrastructure is the greatest economic crime that anyone can commit. I would have thought that the theft of 50 billion by ANC politicians and cadres via state capture would come pretty close, but that is a debate for another day. The President has also set the background to the poor management of infrastructure and its impact. Every element he referred to has been subject to vandalism and theft. He spoke about, firstly, the rapid deterioration of municipal water infrastructure, such as wastewater treatment works and water treatment plants, which undermines the economy and threatens access to basic services. He referred to the disintegration of provincial and municipal roads, which affects the efficiency of the road network, stunts economic growth, and increases the cost of transport for all road users. He also spoke about the failing power plants, causing great harm to the economy and raising the country's risk profile. The hemorrhaging of technical engineering and financial skills in the public sector has contributed significantly to the bleak state of public infrastructure. Decimation of the necessary skills in the public sector has undermined planning, prudent asset management, and the production of a credible and transparent project pipeline. The net effect has been the collapse of industry, disinvestment from the country, and the erosion of funder confidence. Those are the views of the President. Now, the Premier of this province has on numerous occasions indicated that the public sector does not have the expertise or the financial resources to develop the required infrastructure and requires the assistance of external funding and skills from outside of government, including the private sector. And then what does this government do? They implement policy that is anathema to the interests of the people they wish to attract, resulting in these very people showing the ANC two-fingered salute. This administration can quote a number of failed infrastructural projects, projects that take years to complete, as well as projects where the inefficiencies of the infrastructure development department are paid for by the taxpayer. Insufficient maintenance and no property management capability just adds to the loss of value brought about by theft and vandalism. The result of all of this is a deteriorating asset base and an infrastructure backlog worth billions of rands. All the propaganda in the world will not convince South Africans that infrastructure-led development will save our post-COVID economy from poor governance and lack of expertise. I recall an undertaking by the Premier in this House when, with hand on heart, he undertook to get the criminal justice system involved in dealing with so-called business forums interfering with and delaying infrastructure projects in this province. The dynamics on the ground show conclusively that even if the security apparatus ever got involved as promised, they had no impact because the situation has not improved. In any functioning democracy, anyone who steals or damages infrastructure would face the full might of the law, but not in South Africa or Gauteng, because we have a policing and criminal justice system that has been compromised by dysfunctionality, lack of oversight, and political leadership that creates more embarrassment than confidence or hope. This is not the first time that this administration has tried to implement a campaign to protect our infrastructure. The former MEC for Infrastructure, member Smoke and Mirrors Mamabolo, contracted the Moral Regeneration Movement, remember them, to assist in driving a campaign to safeguard public assets from being vandalized. The campaign, called I Care, We Care, was launched with the primary objective of convincing members of civil society that vandalizing schools and clinics or stealing public assets such as railway lines and electricity cables is counterproductive and self-defeating. It should come as no surprise that this campaign was a spectacular failure, and in the process, our fiscus was denuded of millions of rands and our infrastructure continued to be stolen and vandalized. During 2020, Minister Malula once again revealed that 142 train stations in the country, some in Gauteng, were unable to operate properly due to vandalism and cable theft. Commuters have often found themselves late for work due to train or railway breakdowns. Other commuters have been forced to find alternative transport, often more expensive, putting further pressure on their limited financial resources, with less of their salary to spend on other necessities. It is the poor and the vulnerable that are more greatly impacted than anyone else. As a result of the yoke of ANC governance, our people have had their hopes and futures stolen. We are on a downward spiral towards becoming a failed state, and there is no confidence or trust amongst the citizenry that our so-called leaders can address the situation. Despite my misgivings about the potential benefit of a security task team, especially if it is manned by the usual ANC hacks, I do not wish to contribute to further hopelessness. We will therefore not oppose this motion, but request that the task team be strengthened by bringing in people with skills and experience. And while you are about it, please don't waste our money. DA-led government would have had the foresight not to leave our infrastructure exposed due to the lockdown. We would not have cancelled security contracts so that our infrastructure could be carried away by people wishing to make a quick buck. A policing and criminal justice system managed by the DA would ensure that vandals and thieves would face the full extent and might of the law. Efficient infrastructure management by people with the requisite skills would give our economy a fighting chance of recovering from the economic devastation that poor policy choices, the pandemic, and theft of infrastructure has wreaked. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Badenhorst.
Thank you, Speaker. Good morning. Speaker, before we engage on the issue that need to be resolved by this House, as proposed by the ANC in this motion, it will be important to reflect on some of the well-known challenges associated with infrastructure vandalism. Socio-economic factors are some of the reasons that can be attributed to people turning to theft and vandalizing state infrastructure in order to make a living out of infrastructure equipment. With the rate of unemployment at such a high level and a contracting economy, people use any means necessary to survive. Indeed, public infrastructure is critical to economic development and equally so in the provision of equitable, efficient, reliable, safe and affordable public transport to the millions of workers within the province. We are concerned, however, that the motion presupposes that there is a deliberate sabotage in critical infrastructure without clear evidence, while calling upon the House to debate and resolve to assess the impact of such vandalism. It seems to us that perhaps members of the ANC already have some information that we do not have, that it's deliberate sabotage while calling on this House to reflect on the proposed multi-sectoral response. Speaker, the reality is that the economy is not creating enough job opportunities, but instead jobs are being lost at an alarming rate. The most affected sections of our communities turn to crime to survive. State infrastructure such as railway and electricity cables become the easiest targets, but more importantly, government has not invested enough in protecting critical infrastructure, especially infrastructure serving poor and working class communities. Infrastructure vandalism of either state or private property, be it in Gauteng or anywhere in the country, must be understood within the context the majority of African black people find themselves as a result of the racialized triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities perpetuated by an uncaring government. These acts of criminality are a direct response to these challenges. As we rightly diagnose this problem in EFF 2019 election manifesto, black people remain on the margins of economic production and outside of life and enhancing economic participation. We cannot shy away from the fact that joblessness and poverty among black South Africans are at crisis levels, which leads to our people trying any means necessary, including infrastructure vandalism, in order to survive. They do not just steal or engage in these acts of criminality because they enjoy doing so, but because the ANC-led government has failed them. Speaker, we all know that this crime we are debating today is a direct result of the socio-economic consequences. This could only be uprooted by economically developing our communities and providing sustainable jobs to our people. This should be the first point of departure when dealing with a crime, because we do not believe that people would harass, arrest, and vandalize public infrastructure just for its own sake. It has been proven that our law enforcement agencies, especially the police, are failing to prevent or stop vandalism and other acts of criminality because they do not have the capacity to do so. Gauteng does not have enough police officers to prevent and combat crime. The ANC government removed what used to be called railway police and outsourced the services to friends and caterers through tenders, hence the collapse in railway infrastructure. Yes, critical infrastructure needs to be protected because it's essential to foster economic growth and alleviate poverty and unemployment. To prevent further vandalism and deal with criminal syndicates, the government must build its own state capacity by employing additional police officers and ensure that it absorbs all police reservists and security guards to increase police visibility in all areas. Speaker, we all are well aware that both the private and the public sectors are unable to provide the much needed jobs so that our people can work and not vandalize infrastructure. We have on numerous occasions maintained that given the character of our economy, the state must take control of the strategic sectors of economy through nationalization. Wealth must be transferred from the minority through state intervention. That should form part of the foundation for a sustainable economic transformation and eradicating infrastructure vandalism. We further agree that critical infrastructure is needed to grow the economy and attract further need investment in the province. However, we need to take note of the fact that young and unemployed people are the ones who are mostly involved in vandalism because of poverty, with the economy not creating the much needed job opportunity.
Time up. Thank you. Honorable Hoffman.
Okay, thank you.
Geagte voorsitter, die Vryheidsfront Plus verwelkom die inisiatief rondom die beskerming van infrastruktuur binne Gauteng. Tog, soos met alles wat die ANC aanpak, is dit 'n paar jaar te laat. As jy deur die onstede ry, merk jy afgesaagde verkeersligte en lamppale, slote waar daar eers kabels in was, kilometers se spoorlyne wat verdwyn het, straatnaamborde en verkeersteken wat nie meer daar is nie, oop gate waar daar eens deksels was. Die feit dat die regering die plunder van sy eie bates onverpoos net laat voortgaan is beduidend tot die kultuur wat in Suid-Afrika geskep word deur die ANC. Die ANC-kaders kan miljoene rande steel, maar waar jou siel as jy 'n stuk staal steel? Die probleem is nie die mense van Suid-Afrika nie, maar die politieke plunderaars. Voorsitter, soos ekonomiese omstandighede in Suid-Afrika drasties verswak en die landsgrense poreus bly, is ek jammer om te sê dat die vlaag van misdaad rondom infrastruktuur oorweldigend blyk te wees.
Dit is hartseer dat die geagte eerbare lid die verval raak sien en sal die Vryheidsfront Plus se eerste voorstel wees om die polisieminister af te bring aarde toe. Dit blyk dat hy met die besnyding van die polisiebegroting nie regtig weet wat in Suid-Afrika aangaan nie. Voorsitter, die volgende voorstel, bykomend tot die mosie, sal wees dat skrootwerwe en handelaars verantwoordelik gehou moet word met baie strenge regulasies. Tog is dit juis hier waar die mark geskep word vir vandale en diewe om die infrastruktuur te gaan verkoop. Ek bedank u.
Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable members. It is a universal fact that infrastructure development has a positive correlation to economic growth and human development. Gauteng's status as the country's economic hub and the wealthiest province was largely due to the efficiency and quality of its infrastructure. It should be worrying and concerning to all of us that the evil culture of the destruction of our public infrastructure assets now threatens to reverse the fortunes of our province. The prevalent crimes of infrastructure theft and vandalism have resulted in the devaluation of the province as an investment destination and further undermines prospect of recovering from the devastating impact of the COVID-19 crisis. We must always guard against this, for there can never be any justification for vandalism, which is essentially tantamount to the sabotage of society and the economy. What concerns us as the IFP is that despite the daily reports flagging the issue of vandalism and theft of essential transport, education, electricity, and water infrastructure in Gauteng, this evil act seems to be increasing rather than declining. This tells us that criminals are acting with heightened impunity from the lack of law enforcement. But it is not an issue of law enforcement alone. Something is also amiss when communities fail to protect their own schools, libraries, and clinics from vandals, or fail to report those copper cable and steel thieves stripping down our trade rails. The Gauteng Transport Authority reported rail infrastructure damages of over 170 million in 2020, and it is said that 80% of the province railway stations are all in rain. That is just one important and affordable mode of transport sector that is at risk of a complete halt. Added to that, theft and vandalism of water and sewer plants, components and electric cables and substation equipment. The overall cost of this easily escalates into billions of rands. This severely compromises the quality and efficiency of service delivery to citizens, especially since municipalities and provincial departments are then forced to redirect funds that would otherwise go to service delivery. For instance, the city of Johannesburg spends not less than 50 million per annum on infrastructure replacement and repairs and additional security. Madam Speaker, the unfortunate reality is that tax-paying citizens are the ones who foot the bill for the social and economic cost of public infrastructure damage, while criminals...
Time over. You must go and get votes so that you can have numbers.
Who speaker when?
Thank you.
Who speaker when?
Honorable Mabulo.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to greet the Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier, the Chief Whip of the African National Congress, the only Chief Whip in the House in true terms, all MECs and all honorable members, the residents of our beautiful province. Honorable members, I would like to dedicate this debate to the youth of our country in memory of the youth that perished before the hands of the apartheid brutal state machinery in 1976. Because this motion takes place on the day that marks the beginning of the Youth Month. Before I get to this motion, let me thank Honorable Madobani Nkosi for a well-crafted, very refreshing, and revolutionary developmental motion Honorable Malobane Nkosi has relieved us of the stranglehold of the DA's depressing poor motions that are often, if not always, about the Premier and nothing else. So today we have the opportunity to debate matters of development. And thanks to Honorable Malobane Nkosi. Let me, Honorable Speaker, upfront call on this House to support, to adopt, and to implement the motion as the resolution of this very important House. This is because, particularly for us as revolutionary forces, our historic clarion call has been about people's property for people's power, to realize the ideals in the Freedom Charter. This motion is in essence about realizing the ideals of the Freedom Charter and all the ANC election manifestos. The motion speaks to the essential content of the National Democratic Revolution, the most unifying revolutionary perspective of the people of this country across the length and breadth of the country as a whole. Now, very briefly, the motion calls on us to look at the issue of critical infrastructure. And because this is a debate, I would like to attempt in a very scholarly way to quote Section 16 of the Critical Infrastructure Act of 2019, which defines critical infrastructure as infrastructure that is essential for the economy, national security, public safety, and continuous provision of public services. I must hasten to add that transportation is part and parcel of the backbone of the economy. Infrastructure right here in our province includes fuel pipelines, farm tanks, passenger rail, freight rail, intermodal hubs for freight, passenger, and taxi ranks, freeways, BRT systems, and airports, this constituting transport infrastructure. And Gauteng systems are unique in the country and provide an edge in the competitiveness of our economy, both from the point of view of people and freight. I just want to remind the House that Gauteng province is the economic hub of the African continent and is strategically positioned to provide optimal movement of goods, and freight is moved on rail, rate, air, and pipelines. Any disruptions of these components result in ripple effects that can be felt throughout the region and, of course, degrades and undermine our country's competitiveness globally. Now, ladies and gentlemen and honorable members, we have many examples in our province of what destruction to infrastructure can do, and those are very clear. I can give you an example that we have also seen numerous attacks of a criminal nature on the passenger rail network over the history of the passenger rail in Gauteng. Just before lockdown, train collisions were becoming frequent events due to failure of signaling system as a result of vandalism and theft. Just in 2017-2018 report, PRASA presented its most malicious damage to property report showing a massive increase of security incidents related to theft and vandalism
of up to 4,984 incidents that impacted its operational safety. PRASA accounts for 97% of the passenger rail network. At one stage during the lockdown, PRASA reported that on the once busy 35-kilometer main line between Johannesburg Park Station and Randfontein, around 60 kilometers of cable was stolen. While commuter trains were not running, a handful of Transnet freight rail trains were getting caught in cable thefts caused by the thieves, and this has had far-reaching implications for the capacity of Transnet to carry freight. In the same period, the Gautrain recorded incidents and attempts on its infrastructure network. However, fortunately, in the onset of COVID-19, the Gautrain took major and extra steps to protect its infrastructure and therefore were not affected as such. Now, honorable members, I want to say that it is also very much important that as honorable members in the House, we take note of the fact that violent service delivery protests, burning tires on the roads, barricading streets, and all other forms of violent protests, burning of schools, social and economic infrastructure, constitute what in the motion is clearly defined as sabotage to the economy. And it is for this reason, honorable members, I just want to say to our opposition parties that you have not debated this motion. You were just puffing hot air. You haven't said anything. And I'd like to remind you what the motion says. This motion, Honorable Speaker, is calling on us to support the establishment of the provincial task team that will deal with matters of infrastructure. And I want to propose and emphasize to the House that I think this House must establish, including the Political Oversight Committee, not just the technical committee to look at this issue, including law enforcement, but we need also the Political Oversight Committee. And my proposal in strengthening the motion is that we must make this a standing item in our annual reports, in our quarterly reports, about how far work have we done to protect and preserve our infrastructure. And because only the ANC lives and ANC leads, it can only be the ANC that can understand this matter and lead the House in its implementation. And let ANC live, let ANC lead. Thank you very much.
Honorable Adams. Honorable Adams.
Honorable Speaker, I'm not well, so I'm fine. I will pass.
Honorable Mufama.
The Bishop is not well because he didn't prepare.
Thank you, Speaker.
It's even COVID, like MEC of Health.
Speaker, the vandalism of public infrastructure has been a problem in the province and the country even before the announcement of the lockdown, and it must not be made to sound like it's a lockdown problem. Number two, for instance, it is estimated that the copper theft alone cost to the South Africa economy at least 5 billion per year, arising from direct losers. Cables, equipment, cost of repair, replacement, and massive indirect. The primary target of criminals are electricity generation and supply, water assets and infrastructure, and cellular telecommunication and rail transportation system. As a result, strategic national resources are under attack by criminals. Perhaps the assumption was the criminals will also be on lockdown, but the vandalism and the theft is not lockdown. Many schools across the province has been broken into and value stolen, threatening the livelihoods of future of our learners. Some new schools, like Menzi Primary School, was robbed and broken into a week after Education Department official opened as early as January last year, because government simply does not invest in security or infrastructure, meant for poor and most black people. If anything, the MC unshamefully called on community members to protect infrastructure against potentially armed criminals. Indeed, it is responsibility of communities to take ownership of the infrastructure that government contract in their community, but is not the responsibility of community members to protect the infrastructure when government has simply not invested anything towards security. We must begin firstly by condemning all forms of vandalism to public infrastructure, especially to public schools, transport infrastructure, clinic and hospitals. There must be no economic distortion that leads anyone to justify vandalizing at public infrastructure because it's literally stealing from our children's future. It is indeed deeply concerning that at least four schools has been banned and 60 vandalized in the province since the lockdown, and immediately the EFF calls on community members to protect school in collaboration with law enforcement because protecting school is securing the future of our children. This call, however, must never be mistaken with absolving government responsibility towards infrastructure. We must uphold the community of Soweto, who called two suspected criminals attended at Tawana Primary School for not taking the law into own hands and calling people to apprehend them. But it will be also irresponsible for us to say communities must guard school against potentially armed and dangerous criminals when the government has literally abdicated its responsibility of protecting its own infrastructure. In this budget vote, the Minister of Transport indicated an increase in budget from 55.9 billion in 2021 to 74.5 billion in 2023-24 financial year. He indicated that a substantial share of expenditure will direct towards rail infrastructure maintenance, operation, and inventories. Take, for instance, the increased vandalism of railway infrastructure that we have witnessed in the past month, apparently amounting to an amount of 173 million, mostly target metro rail, threatening to detail crucial and affordable transport service to hundreds of thousands poor communities, but not one vandalism was targeting Gautrain. Why? It's because Gautrain, which mostly communities which rich and middle classes had invested at least 1,000 high-tech CCTV cameras, but Metro Rail, which communities mostly be poor and working class, does not have such facilities. A permanent solution to increase the theft and vandalism of public infrastructure must begin firstly by government treating all infrastructure with the same importance. The infrastructure is poor communities, and the infrastructure is the rich, affluent communities. In the government is able to find ways and its limited resources to invest in high-tech CCTV cameras of Gautrain, which commuters of fraction of Gautrain passengers.
Thank you.
Why can same be done for Metro Rail?
Thank you. Honorable Randall.
Good morning. Thank you, Speaker. It's now almost 3 years ago that the DA's motion on safeguarding of critical infrastructure has been debated, a motion the ANC shot down and voted against and tore us apart with personal attacks. To see a similar motion being debated today gives me the hope that the ANC is, after all, serious about the major impact vandalism and sabotage has on the critical infrastructure in the province. Speaker, critical infrastructure includes assets, systems, facilities, networks, and other elements that society relies upon to maintain national security, economic vitality, and public health and safety. And is it important that engagement at all levels of government and industry is ensured to successfully foster mutual understanding and trust, whilst promoting information sharing and practical exchanges? Effective engagements will also ensure that a strong critical infrastructure security and resilience program based on collaboration and information sharing is in place and will yield the necessary results. COVID-19 impact on our economy and livelihoods of the most vulnerable in our province was and is still devastating. And there's only now to try and assess the impact and implication of sabotage and vandalism on our critical infrastructure is too little too late for so many residents who has lost all hope and trust in an incapable government. PRASA a public entity wholly owned by government, hardest hit by vandalism, and already in financial trouble as a result of irregular expenditure to the value of 21 billion rand, now will have to fork out billions more to fix its vandalized infrastructure. Speaker, if a database of serial offenders are to be compiled, let us also note the electricity infrastructure damage caused by Eskom's impact on load shedding. That cost the city of Tshwane this year already 21.5 million rand, and in the previous financial year 232 million to fix similar damages. The DA supports the establishment of a provincial protection infrastructure task team, but warns that despite having such a task team, we will not see results if a put a plaster on the wound strategy will be followed. We need to face the real reasons why sabotage and vandalism has continued and intensified during COVID. For starters, it will help if politicians, officials, contractors, and residents can once again be reminded what is meant by moral high ground. The status of being respected for remaining moral and adhering to and upholding a universally recognized standard of justice and goodness. The situation will definitely be less dire. It would need less intervention at the same time, and it will cost us less, Madam Speaker. Applicable legislation should also be relooked, especially the Second-Hand Goods Act, that is meant to control the sale and export of copper from electrical cables. Since when is South Africa a major exporter of copper? Did you ask yourself that ever? Speaker, I want to close by quoting from our DA's economic justice policy. Open quote, "A growing economy is the front line of the fight for inclusion. Without improving South Africa's prospects, there can only be shared misery instead of shared prosperity." Close quote. Thank you.
Honorable Makubela.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To best describe vividly and without any sense of exaggeration the horror of our current situation, allow me to summon from the grave an extraordinary Irish mind who over a century ago admonished us of the dangers that we today face. William Butler Yeats, in his poem The Second Coming, said, and I quote, "Turning and turning in the widening Gaia, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all convictions, while the West are full of passionate intensity." Madam Speaker, allow me to repeat that part. The best lack all conviction, and the West are full of passionate intensity. A shape with a lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and as pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of indignant desert beds. A rough beast is slouches towards Bethlehem to be born, close quote. The late Nigerian book writer and poet Chinua Achebe writes gloomingly about the reality of our present day in his book, Things Fall Apart. He says, and I quote, "Warriors will fight scribes for the control of your institutions, while Bush will conquer your roads and pathways. Your land will yield less and less, while your offsprings multiply. Your houses will leak from the floods, and your soil will crack from the drought. Your sons will refuse to pick up the hoe and work and prefer to wander in the wild. You shall learn ways of cheating, and you will poison the kola nuts as you serve your own selfish interests. And yet, things will fall apart," close quote. Unlike William Butler Yeats, Madam Speaker, Chinua Achebe speaks directly to our own African experience and horrific reality. when he says that your land will yield less and less while your children multiply. He said this to explain what we daily witness, born of one of the political parties that is represented here in the legislature, where this populist party encourages its members and members of the public to hijack vacant land to build shacks. And this is land earmarked and zoned for recreational facilities as well as for development. Every day, this land is hijacked in the name of intoxicated a political ideology of expropriation of land without far too often have we seen the 30% criminal syndicate, Madam Speaker, masquerading as business forums, exploiting the gaps in our legislations on local procurement spend for the control and manipulation of our institutions. It has happened that throughout our province, we have allowed the wild bush to conquer our roads and our pathways. Many of our sons have refused to pick up the hoe and work, preferring to wander in the wilds. The 30% criminal syndicate, Madam Speaker, which at its helm are convicted, unrepentant criminals who have acquired intelligence to learn ways of cheating the gaps in our legislation. Enslaved by the most selfish passions, many have poisoned the cola nuts. They serve their own selfish interests, as Chinua Achebe says. One of the greatest African minds weighed in on this matter we are debating today in this house in his book, The Devil on the Cross. Professor Ngungi wa Thiong'o says of the 30% criminal syndicate that, and I quote, "Now we know the secrets of the ropes that disguise your cunning. You commit murder, then you wear your clothes of pity, and you go to wipe tears from the faces of orphans and widows. You steal food from the people's stores at midnight, then at the dawn you visit the victims wearing your clothes of charity, then you offer them a calabash filled with the grain that you have stolen from them. You encourage righteousness solely to gratify your own appetites, then you wear your clothes of righteousness and urge men to repent, to follow you so that you may show them the path of purity. You steal men's wealth, then you wear your clothes of friendship and instruct them to join you in the pursuit of the villain who has robbed them," close quote. On 1st September 2020, Madam Speaker, I joined this August House virtually to debate ways to end what has been termed economic sabotage through the destruction of a much-needed infrastructure. Amongst those ways was the use of existing laws by the South African Police Service and all legal structures to curb the blatant looting of infrastructure. We further called on the Premier to act and the MEC of Community Safety to champion the implementation of existing laws. This stance was informed by the seriousness of the vandalism and the theft of critical infrastructure and its implication for the country and for the province. As the ANC, we committed to addressing this issue and agreed that if strengthening of the law was required to fight against this scourge, we as this House, with all the powers delegated to us by the Constitution, will ensure that we do so. I maintain then that the government has an obligation to protect our infrastructure and take a strong stance against the thugs who have no shame in stripping our country of its infrastructure and deny us many prospects of economic growth. Today, exactly 9 months later, I stand before this August House to reiterate my words. We cannot operate as if all is normal at a time when criminal syndicates have no shame, have lost all respect for authority, and continuously strip our country of critical infrastructure. The boldness with which thieves strip the railway lines, digging out cables at broad daylight, is a clear indication for no respect of the rule of law. In fact, government should view these acts as acts of treason, and those who found to breaking these laws must be charged with treason. Government is held at ransom daily by the 30% criminal syndicates who are bleeding the economy of this province into billions of rands. Madam Speaker, the signs are everywhere that we are not dealing with these amateur criminals here. These are organized crime syndicates that are all hell-bent to destroy this country at whatever cost. Infrastructure vandalism and theft in the rail environment ranges from the overhead electrical lines, electrical substations, as well as vandalisms of station and depot buildings. Schools are not spared, as seen during the hard lockdown period, where schools were vandalized and schools' equipment, including stationery, stolen. In addition to the rail and transportation systems, electricity generation and supply, water assets and infrastructure, as well as terrestrial and cellular telecommunications are also primary targets of these criminal syndicates. Public hearings conducted by the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation revealed in 2014 that the vandalism and theft of infrastructure has escalated to a point that these syndicates hijack legitimate community protests for their own selfish interests. It cannot be normal, Madam Speaker, that a community will ban a school to get a clinic or vice versa, or that this criminal syndicate will dig our roads so that later they can go and claim 30% when potholes are being closed. We have been for far too long very lenient, and it is time that all those involved face the full might of the law. It is time to act. If we do not, this country will be stripped up to a point where there is nothing left. Gauteng has been hardest hit by vandalism and theft of railway lines. During lockdown alone, Madam Speaker, 5 kilometers.
Time up. You're preaching here.
Honorable Nkosi Malubane, can you respond to the debate?
No, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I wish to express my sincerest gratitude to you, Madam Speaker, and the House for hosting this debate on such an important and essential matter. The debate advanced here today shows that indeed we are united on the issue of the protection of public infrastructure. However, Madam Speaker, as tempting as it may be to justify this senseless vandalism in our name of making some money or secure some land or housing or even secure a job, I once again state categorically and unapologetically that there can be never any excuse, no matter how it may be motivated or justified, for the destruction, vandalism, and dismantling of public infrastructure. The protection of public infrastructure is all our business, individually and collectively, in all sectors of society, irrespective of political affiliation or economic ideology. We hold true. We need to get this message through to our communities that vandalizing our infrastructure. The establishment of a sectoral task team for protection of critical infrastructure in the province, as well as the strict regulations on the scrap metal industry, will certainly go a long way to preventing the current destruction and going forward the protection of our critical infrastructure in the province, Madam Speaker. Critical infrastructure needs to be protected as essential to foster economic growth and alleviate poverty and unemployment. Our roads, rail network, electricity grids, and similar infrastructure are essential to the growth of our economy and attract foreign direct investment for the economic sustainability. In protecting our public infrastructure, we will be restoring the economic stability, sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for Madam Speaker to call you to order.
Since this was a motion for a resolution, a question will be put. First, is there a seconder for this motion?
I second, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I now put the question. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those not in favor say no.
Double yes.
All those not in favor say no. The yes have it. The motion is adopted by the House.
Manta.
Honorable members, colleagues, let me remind you that the team from the communications will be downstairs until 13 hours. For those members who have not collected their blazers, please do so. Honorable members, as you are aware that the COVID-19 infections are rising in terms of numbers daily in Gauteng is one of those areas where we might be having a third wave. We request that you all take care of yourselves, take care of your families, protect communities because you're also doing the work within communities, but also as public representatives continue to create awareness for all citizens to adhere to health protocols. Thank you very much, colleagues. This concludes the business for the day. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday next week, on the 8th of June 2021 at 10 hours sharp. The House is now adjourned. Thank you. Mukwebo, Honorable Mukwebo.